just to share the inspirations that I have through my career with other people and other things like that that would be, I think, valuable for people to watch and for them to use in their own work and their own lives to help them better become what they would like to become as an artist and as a tattooer. I was really excited about doing an eagle on the back. I haven't done one for a while. I can't remember when I did one last, but you know, it's going to be different, a little dynamic. So I did a couple sketches that I liked, and then I sent them the sketches. I did a couple variations maybe. I sent 3 different kind of layouts to Henry and Claudia and Utaro. They all gave me feedback on them, and Henry even did a couple little sketches for me of different layouts, which I found surprising that I didn't like as much as I would have thought, because Henry does really great eagles and he's always helped me well with drawing. Even if it was just a tiny bit of work that I needed, or if it was a more amount of work that I needed to change on the drawing, I didn't like them. They didn't work for me. I felt that they just weren't what I wanted to project to look like. And I sent those drawings that Henry sent me, plus the ones that I did, all to Claudia and Utaro, and they picked one of the ones that I did, the one that they preferred. That gave me a little more confidence there, because when someone sends you some other stuff and then you have your drawings and you have not a little bit, there were quite a bit different versions here that another peer that you really respect, looking at them going like, well, fuck, maybe mine do suck. Maybe they're not right. Maybe I need to go this direction, but I didn't like them. So in the end, it was a weird one, because it's very, very rare that I get some feedback from somebody that gives me that much that I don't take more of it into account with what I'm doing. Honestly, if I had it my way, I'd make the Black Claw mags more open, but all the people that bought them got sad that they were too open and they couldn't figure out how to tat with them. So we had to close them down a little bit. I like them more open because they have less resistance in the skin, and I think they saturate better. And especially if the Magnum is really tight, it just doesn't work well. It causes more trauma. You can't get the same kind of fades, and I think they just don't introduce pigment as efficiently. I don't want to wing it, right? Like, I like this piece. I like most of my tattoos I work on. I try to put a lot of energy into them. And so by doing this stuff, even though, like, see the simple thing I'm doing here with adding some scales on that leg, not scales, adding an area where I think I'm going to shade. I already know what to do there, and it's not that hard, but sometimes I want to just put it in there so my brain doesn't have to visualize it. And I'm laying down some stuff here because I want to make sure that what I'm doing is what I want to do. It gives me an easier way to achieve that without thinking about it during the process, and I can just plug into the actual tattoo and not, do the feather here and go like, okay, I need to put this line this far from the feather, and then I need to do this. It's just like, I know what I'm doing, boom, I just execute. And I think that stuff is important because it lets the tattooer, lets me get to work. On the Eagle, I used 2 different types of machines. I used a rotary style and a traditional coil. Because I develop so much of what Black Claw makes, I'm constantly having to experiment and try new groupings and new cartridges, how they work, how they don't work, what I like about them. So for the last 5 years, I've been tattooing with so many different things that it's become normal for me to work with new groupings and different machines all the time. So when we started developing the carts, I had to use rotary machines because a majority of rotary machines are developed for carts, and contrarily, a lot of coil machines don't work great with cartridges. I will say that I feel more comfortable with a normal coil machine with a needle on bar getting all my results because I have much more experience with them. Understand how to get my results how I want pretty easily. And that's an important part of the tattoo process, is choosing the correct machine and your groupings to get the results you want in the least amount of work. When I tattoo, I'm not thinking a lot. If I've done enough work beforehand, I can just plug in and do the work, and that's one of the reasons I'm a faster tattooer than a lot of people. The way I've tattooed forever and the way I feel about a lot of it is I don't believe in a lot of rules for tattooing. I think as long as it visually works good and you can make it effective, then it works. I've already created a lot of dimension even with the two-dimensional thing by having, this is in front of that and behind this, and this is behind here, and this is in front of this piece, and this is in front of this piece, There's a lot of that.
So just like a super light?
It's behind the knee and then comes over the front of the leg, and that goes, here, behind there, and I just think by adding a little bit of atmosphere, because this is all just black whip, and this would just only be the medium gray, which is only 12 drops, to the light gray, which is 5.
Okay.
I'm not trying to talk you into it. I'm just telling you what I'm thinking. This is real simple. I'm just shading in what I'm going to color and marking what I'm going to do later. And as a reminder to myself, maybe if I wouldn't have put the spots in the palms of the bird, maybe I would have remembered that I wanted to do that. I decided that on this piece, even though it's a very traditional piece and we didn't want to run a background, that I wanted to run a little bit of background, a little bit of a light gray to push the figure out, to create an atmosphere for the piece to exist in that I think would make it stronger. Because the piece has a lot of skin in it, I didn't want to have a lot of skin in the parts of the eagle and then right next to that, in some places, just a simple line differentiating the tattooed area from the non-tattooed area. So what I did was I took a light gray and I just threw it in the background, really light, real simple, but it created enough spatiality to separate the background, the back piece, from the subject of the eagle. Because also in this piece I've created lightning in a dynamic way and not in a real traditional way. It's laid out really traditionally in the sense of it's flat and it's not too wild in the shapes, but I've used some really simple constructs to create spatiality by placing the lightning bolts in front or behind different parts of the bird to create three-dimensional feeling on a two-dimensional drawing. Because I already did a little bit of dynamicism inside of this very flat piece, adding a little bit of the background wasn't going to detract from the traditional American aspect of the approach. You can see I'm using a light blue now, and one value of light blue, just pounding it in and doing a little bit of a simple whip out to get a variation or gradation. You can see also too that the marker that I used to denote what I wanted to do is worn out, or worn off by the time I get here when wiping. But just by the process of putting that marker on the skin, basically doing a dry run of shading on that part of how I want to color, it kind of sets it in my brain stronger than just making a note of it or saying to myself earlier, okay, I'm going to shade the feather on the head like this. I've already figured that all out before I start. If you're not comfortable with the design, you can't move forward. And that's sometimes a challenge of critiquing each other's work, because if someone points out something on your drawing that they want you to change, if you don't understand it, sometimes it's really hard to get there. And if you do get there and they say, oh cool, I like that better, but if you don't understand it, you kind of go in there in a weird way. And I've done it myself multiple times where they're saying like, God, you change this part, make it more like this. And I'm like, how? What does that look like? I'm not sure what that looks like. And it's a weird place because you really got to put yourself out there in the world naked for that moment, because you have to be able to say, I don't understand what you want, and I don't understand what that looks like, and I don't understand how to get there. So my pencil is broken. Will you please draw it for me? It's necessary to have other people help you with your drawings and to critique your work in a positive way, right? We need good, positive, critical eyes on the piece, not just like a flippant, I don't like it. It doesn't help anybody, you know? It's a really lazy way to give somebody feedback, because then you're not beholden to help them. You're not beholden to figure out what's wrong with the piece. Articulate what it is about it. Is it the colors? Is it the way it's drawn? Is it the shape? Is it the line weight? What the fuck is it that you don't like about it? So they can better understand what they don't like about it. And then you guys can discuss. Is it something I need to change based on a poor execution of drawing? Or is it something I need to change based on the style? Or is it something I need to just think about, change a little bit, but then keep it in my style? Because you don't want to give people feedback on their drawings and say, hey, this part here, I don't like this, I don't like this, I don't like this, and then change their work to make it look like your work because you think you're fucking great. It's not about that. The real tell of somebody understanding how to give good constructive criticism is them understanding how to give you the feedback that you need to continue on your path that you're going with your point of view of art and still improve it.
Dude, was there milk in that shit earlier?
I don't know, man. Why?
I'm allergic, dude. I can't drink dairy. Or eat it. Because I'm feeling something weird going on in here. But it's like in my mind.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't have to worry about it, but I'm sorry. I'm not sure.
I don't know, dude. I just feel not like myself. Like dripping out a little bit.
Well, I don't know how something you eat's gonna mess with your mind so much. It's probably your mind, Zach. You're pretty weird. I mean, you look okay, but I mean, maybe you don't look okay. You feel okay?
Yeah, dude. I feel fine. I feel great.
Except the voices.
Actually, maybe I don't.
I mean, you look the same, kinda. Maybe not. You all right, dude? You look kind of crazy.
It's like there's something inside my head.
Really? What's it saying?
I can't tell what's real, dude. It's like there's no frame of reality anymore. You know what I mean?
Well, you look a little weird.
Oh yeah, something's not right. Something's not sitting right.
Give me some of that magic milk. Man, I want some milk.
This is so weird. What do you fucking... I wish you could play that voice out into stereo speakers so we could hear not only the voice, but what the fuck is it saying? What is it saying? What are you even doing? Am I even tattooing right now, Zach? Okay, I might be fucking with you a little bit, but am I tattooing?
Yeah, I'm tripping out over here, dude.
Chunkier the better. Uncut chunks. Yeah. That's it. That's the stuff. Can I have some?
Are you being serious? Or you fucking with me?
No, I'm serious, dude. Something's going on. I'm feeling all numb and tingly and shit. I don't know, dude.
I feel like I'm starting to hallucinate now, and it's just freaking me out, dude.
Give me some of that magic milk. Chunkier the better. Uncut chunks. Yeah.
Dude, what are you doing?
What do you mean? I'm fucking tattooing. What do you think I'm doing?
Is everything okay?
Yeah, I just had a really wild dream.
Oh, I made some coffee.
Okay. Thank you.
What's on your hand?
So let's talk about the kind of magical and secretive kind of aspects of tattooing and how that's passed down through generation and how you feel about that, how it influences you, and you know where that sits for you.
Well, I would say first I would say that it's interesting to me. Part of the internet or YouTube or whatever is seeing all these people throw all this information out. Now, I think it's cool that people are able to obtain it. But even if I were, say, a lawyer or a chef, I wouldn't go throwing what somebody taught me just out to anyone. You know, it's kind of like, wow, I put in all these hours in the kitchen to learn this stuff. And it's not to hold power, because I think that's how some people view it. But it's really just because, like, well, I had to, like, go through A, B, and C to get this information. So I'm not, other people should maybe go through A, B, and C, because A, B, and C is actually valuable.
Right.
Right? It's not just the information that's valuable, the process is valuable.
Right.
And I think that in this age of technology, people lose sight of the process being valuable. And it's all really just about the information. And I feel, there are so many, just even down to the simplest part of the fact that they even stay is magical. You know what I mean? The fact that like anything foreign in the skin kind of moves or migrates, and that tattoos just stay as crisp as can be, like what with the tattoo we were looking at earlier that Ed did, 30 years later is still like crisp and phenomenal. It's just like amazing.
It's mind-blowing. I think that's the craft and kind of passing down aspect of tattooing is, I don't want to say unique, but it definitely is not something that is common.
Yeah, I do see a bit of a dynamic, and I don't know if it's because of like things that are happening today, but it seems like there's a lot of talk, anger, suspicion, questioning about like, why would you hold on to that information? Like, why isn't it just out there for everyone?
Right.
And yes, in a way, it was a way to like not monopolize, but just keep it from going completely mainstream, because it was something that was really special. And also too, 20 years ago, not that many people were getting tattooed.
Right.
So there wasn't the volume of tattoos that would allow how many tattooers are around today. Learning how to tattoo is not easy.
Right.
And I think people want things to be easy.
Yeah, right. Everyone does, right? We love convenience.
We love convenience. We got the phones. We got all this convenience, and I just want to learn it,
Right.
And I've met tattooers that I don't think they would be tattooing if they had to have maybe say gone through it like you or I did. And sometimes it seems to have worked out anyway, and other times you can tell why.
Explain to me a little bit about how Ed and Eddie influenced your approach to tattooing, even though you're not trying to be them. Did it influence how you approached your own work?
It's interesting because it was like, in a really roundabout way, it kind of taught me what not to be doing. Because Ed's whole thing was anything can be done as a tattoo, where are your dreams? And so that's kind of what I was doing. I felt like I should be doing. And I kind of got caught up. There was, been tattooing 3 years and like doing back pieces. And some of them,
it's a dangerous space.
Yeah, totally. And if some of them were graphic enough, I could pull it off. And then there were some that I just shouldn't have even been doing that kind of subject matter at that point. I remember a fella asking for like 2 Roman gladiators with a dragon, and they're human figures with the armor. And I didn't do it, because I just had no business doing something like that. But, the essence was just like, go, go, go. And it was like, whoa, actually.
And that's also very early 90s mentality, which is like, we're ripping the whole thing open.
Yeah.
The whole thing's open now.
Yeah, exactly.
Anything.
But it was actually more Igor and Dan that kind of, because I think I got lost in it a little bit. What do I hone in on when there's everything is there?
Right.
It wasn't new school. I think it kind of, watching Dan move towards traditional and then kind of like falling back on traditional tattooing from custom being everything.
Right.
Falling back on traditional tattooing and then just learning how to do that properly. And then being able to apply like the tattoo of the dagger on your arm, being able to apply that to stuff that's a little bit more dynamic or has a little bit more detail in it.
Right.
That was what really gave me my roots. So it's almost like, if I were to analyze it, I would almost feel like as amazing as Eddie was, it was almost like too much for somebody with my skill set, And so being in between like Dan and Eddie was super helpful, because I remember being slightly overwhelmed and then Igor going like, you don't have to do every single thing that comes in the door. you know, and then having that epiphany, like, okay, well, this is a service industry, and I do tattoos, but that doesn't mean I have to do all 100 that come in. What's interesting to me is, you know, reference was a huge deal.
Oh,
you
man.
know, I mean, books.
Guarded.
Yes.
It was just
And-
like, nope, what? I don't know. There's no book. What?
Exactly. You know, and, you know, taking trips to places and like, oh shit, we're in Japan. We can get A, B, and C book, you know.
Or not even that. Books you never heard of. Books
Exactly.
you never seen.
Yeah, exactly.
Books you
know.
see stuff and you're like, I got this book no one has, and you open it up and you're like, except now I know where Ed did that back piece from.
Yeah.
Shit.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a mind blower.
Well, Eddie used to say that a lot. You know, like Ed would come in and do a sleeve on whoever, and Eddie'd be like, I know where he got that.
That was really revealing for me. It was almost like I had to tear down some of my idols after I went to Japan, and I bought just a trove of books. We went to the Kyosai Museum, which was out in the middle of nowhere.
Yep.
We went all these places, and I bought so many books. I had a separate suitcase full of books, and I went to check it on the airplane. They're like, it's gonna be $600 to have this on the plane with you, and I was like, Jesus Christ! And so I had to. The lady was like, you know, if you just take out a few books, we can make this fit under the thing. And I just had to load my shoulder bag, just like jam full of books.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, like I was, and it really like kind of tore down some veils.
Sure.
About the magic of what I was used to seeing. I was like,
Most
oh wow,
definitely.
they're not just like undeniable, super 100% creative whirlwinds. Like they get reference and inspiration too, just like everybody else.
Totally.
Yeah.
And I mean, and obviously I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
No,
I mean,
100%.
if you tried to play it off like it was your idea, then there'd be something wrong with that. But I've never seen like Ed do that or anything like that.
Right.
You know, so, you know, for example, like those binders over there, you know, I remember spending like the last 2 nights I was in Amsterdam, the last time I lived there for about 8 or 9 months. And I had 2 of my friends, like 2 of those gangster dudes I used to always tattoo, and there was 3 of us, and it was like, there was just files and files of stencils, and really, the kind of shit you don't want to draw, but that you would do in a walk-in tattoo shop a lot. Teddy bears with balloons, whatever that is, you know what I mean?
Right.
So I would just, you know, get this, and then I'd copy it, and then I'd hand it to my friend, and he'd put it back in the binder, and then I'd hand the copy to my other friend, and he'd put it in the stack. And we had like a little assembly line going.
Right.
And it took us like 2 nights, you know, and I had that for opening here because I knew that was my goal coming home from there. I went there to save some money and to come back and open.
Right.
So for me, for example, like I didn't have a printer. We had a copier, of course, like those little copiers.
Right.
But I didn't have a printer for the longest time. And it was like, I'm not getting one because then people will expect me to do this.
Right.
And they're going to want to email me stuff and then I'm going to have to print it out. And it was like a gate. I think once I started putting people's iPhones on the copier is when I was like, okay, fuck it, we're going to get a printer.
Right.
You know?
You're like, ah.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, because
So-
you're like, I don't want to have to. How am I going to trace this or whatever?
Yeah,
Like,
exactly,
fuck it.
exactly. You know, like, you know, now people come in and they show you what they want, you know. You know, it's good and bad, I guess, like everything, you know what I
Sure,
mean?
it
I
has
guess
its
like
utility, for
it's
sure.
brought the level of tattooing up because there's like really good reference, like people aren't drawing as much stuff. if you don't know how to draw that well, you know, I've known great tattooers that don't know how to draw.
But there's throughout time.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and you know, more power to them. And if it helps, that's great. I've also seen people, you know, like we just talked about, you know, where I've seen a tattoo and known where it's come from. You know, like, oh, well, I can see that that person was looking at a Tim Lehigh tiger, for example, or whatever,
right,
when they did it. You know, and also in tattooing, we've always done that. So I don't think there's really anything wrong with being inspired or using reference, but it does seem like cheating a little bit if you're just kind of like screen shooting it, cropping it, tracing it, which you can do, obviously. Right. I've even done drawings looking at Tim Lehigh's tigers and then sent him the drawing. Sure. And like, how would you, I'm having a weird time with the nose or whatever it was, you know?
Right, right.
So
yeah, but that's how you learn to do it. You know,
exactly.
That's really just, I think that's fundamentally how to approach drawing and creating, right?
Of course.
Like, what are you going to do? Just sit down and be like, what's a tiger look like? Have no reference. Have only seen, never even seen a tiger in person in your life. Yeah. And then think like, okay, I'm just going to draw it out of nowhere. And then how do I translate that kind of imagery into a tattoo?
Yes.
Kind of appropriate line and that kind of thing. And, you know, if you have some people that do it really well, then you can see what they're doing, the constructs and how they're making that jump, right? The distillation that really is effective. Can you give us some of your perspective on spiritual tattooing?
Sure.
Sure.
I've seen it go kind of both ways. I think intention is a huge part of that, and in tattooing as well.
Right.
As a tattooer, like, what are your intentions? Like, what are your intentions in getting involved in tattooing? You know, why would you even want to be a tattooer? And I've also seen it get really weird too. There's a shop around in this area that offers spiritual tattooing, you know, and I remember hearing that and I was like, well, what is that? You know, what is spiritual tattooing?
Right, right.
And
it can mean so many different things to different people.
Yeah, exactly, of course. And it was basically like, for an extra $50 an hour, you get like to burn some incense, light a candle, put headphones on and listen to music, and they provide like a music stand in front of you so you can like stare at an image, which is bizarre, right?
Very interesting take on spirituality.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, yeah, you know.
So, you know, and I used to really like cringe when people would use the example. This is more of like a late 80s kind of thing, but you know, like being a tattooer is like kind of like being like a shaman, or people kind of take on this like medicine man, you know, like guru-esque type shit, you know what I mean? Where it's like, I'm the man or I'm the woman or whatever, and you know, I know what's going on. Yes.
Right.
And I'm not into that at all.
Right.
You know, I think I went to India once to do a puja for my brother who had just passed.
Right. And
I remember asking a very close friend, somebody that I would consider to be like a teacher to me, you know, who's heavily involved in the Dharma and stuff. I remember asking him like, well, who, you know, there's so many Brahmin priests there. Like, how do I decide who's down and who's like, you know, because they'll rush you as well. You know, it's like getting out of a train station and there being tons of people like, hey, you need a ride? Hey, you need a ride? Well, if you're in Varanasi, there's times when there's like priests doing that to you. How do you figure out like who's really down and who has like the knowledge? And he just said to me, like, that's part of it. That's all part of the process, you know? That was so poignant, you know, and you can apply that to so many things. So when it comes to like tattooing and like spirituality in tattooing, it's kind of, I don't think it's like a given. I think it's something that can be applied, and if applied correctly, it could be something that's very special. It can also be something that's super hokey, you know? So I think that's just kind of, you know, an interpretation of the individual, and what they find cheesy or what resonates with them. I was really attracted to like the imagery you know, like I think Catholic stuff is my favorite. You know, I mean, I love Hindu stuff and Buddhist stuff and all that stuff, but the Catholic stuff is the stuff that I'm like really, really drawn to.
Do you know why?
I think it's just kind of the emotion and the look of it. The Vatican is like one of the things I love and hate the most. You know what I mean? Like, I loathe the Vatican and the politics of the Vatican, but it's one of the most beautiful places I've ever been. And obviously it's beautiful because they beat people into making it that way, you know? So that's the shit I have like a hard time with. But
Weird thing to reconcile those.
yeah, and I think that's why I kind of, you know, I really just think that like religions are just different languages of the same shit, I think, for me, you know? So that's why I don't have any, I'm not bound by any dogma, you know what I mean? Because for me as a Christian, if I were a Christian, to go into a Buddhist monastery and say a prayer, which is something I like to do, that would be blasphemous. You know, I had a Christian, a born again, tell me, you know, Buddha is the nicest man burning in hell right now. Okay, dude, sure. You know, so I just don't get so much of it, but there are essences or like tinctures. The nectar of some of that shit is stuff that I am really drawn to.
I think there's a tie into the adventure and excitement of just getting tattooed, right? Like it breaks down a lot of walls because you're not necessarily worried about some constraints that you have on yourself or self-perception and that kind of stuff. You're thinking about like the adventure of it, like what it can be. It's going to be fun. I'm excited.
Yeah.
And it breaks down some of that insecurities maybe that we have.
Sure.
And because in some ways, like we're getting our own kind of spiritual armor.
Sure.
So maybe that's part of it. You're feeling like you're doing, in some shape or form, you're doing some kind of spiritual growth in some way, right?
Could be, yeah.
I feel like there is. I mean,
you
even
have
if
to
you're
go through
getting
the pain, you have to. It's like a pilgrimage.
right, but even if you're getting like you're getting a crawling panther, you're just like panthers are cool. That's tough. I like the way it looks. It makes me feel strong. Or somebody's getting a memorial tat and they're saying like, you know, this is helping me cope with that.
Sure.
Or someoe's getting this biomech arm and they're talking about, you know, this does this for me. I think on some level, I think a lot of just getting tattooed shares a lot of this. I don't know. It's like you're working through some little bit of who you are and getting some little. You're creating and giving yourself an aspect that you feel you need to help you go on to a higher level of self.
Most definitely. One of the best compliments I ever got about this place, and I didn't even know what it meant at first, was a friend of mine who used to have a shop here on the block. He loved hanging out here. And he said, you know, this place reminds me of a Raiders game. And I'm not a sports guy,
Right.
So I had no idea what that meant. And I was like, well, what do you mean? You know? But he said, basically at a Raiders game, you could have, you know, rich folks, poor folks, Asian folks, black folks, white folks. You have all these folks that are totally different. And they're all hanging out and they're all rooting on the Raiders and they're all high-fiving each other. And they're, for that moment, they're totally in it. And I've never seen anything like that anywhere else other than here. And what he loved about hanging out here was that he would come here and there would be punkers and there would be gangsters and there'd be like a sweet old lady and there'd be, you know, a gay couple or whatever, you know, pick any group.
Right.
And everybody was vibing and having a good time and chatting and excited to be getting tattooed. And, you know, so that was like a great compliment, I thought. You know, it was like, once he explained it, like I
Right.
loved it. You know, and I've mentioned it a couple times in conversation, but I just thought that was like super profound. And that's something that tattooing has done for cultures as well, you know, and where politics will completely divide people, tattooing is like a universal thing that will bring people together. I remember going and getting tattooed by Bob Roberts, you know, and just being so fucking excited about it, you know, having the appointment and driving down there. I went down there with Theo Jack and Igor Mortis, and we got into a crazy fucking car accident on the way down there. But that was not stopping us. You know what I mean? Like, okay, well we dealt with that. Next morning, at the tattoo shop, not getting the car fixed or anything like that. It was just all about the tattoo, you know, and that stuff is like super profound, you
That's
know,
cool.
and they're great memories, great memories. Whatever you're doing, but you run out of like supplies, or maybe it gets cold and you have to go all the way back to camp to get some more shit, or to get some food or a snack or whatever, or more drugs. But basically I was like, my friend used to serve tea and I was like, you know, wouldn't it be cool if we could just kind of like set up something out on the playa where we could keep stuff and maybe like have a little bit of tea, you know, but it has to be basically an art installation. So my friend ended up designing this kind of Tibetan style tent, and the cool thing is that it's set up on the axis, so each point is northwest, south, east and south. There's the element for the direction in the corners.
Okay.
And my friend's he's into Tibetan Buddhism, so that's why this is kind of a Tibetan style. But it was basically like wherever the moon rose, you could roll that, you know, you could roll that side up and put the other side down and block it from the wind. It kept people warm at night. And the all-seeing eye, a friend of mine made that sign, and it says "Non Quai Dormio," which means like never sleep. You know, so the idea is like, you know, tea is caffeinated, you never sleep, but we'd let people sleep inside. So I've always really loved that thing. That was special.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I haven't been there for about 11 years, but who knows what it's like now. Bunch of RVs and a bunch of tech yuppies.